get education. Price of your life is going up, it ain't inflation. Incrimination, they got my picture at the station. Elimination, state to state, we eaten by this nation. Then belly full, my trigger finger got pulled.
You know, many people like to place all the blame when it comes to corruption, deceitfulness, and conditions within society upon the absence of values. You see, all the blame should not just be laid upon the absence of values. People have to actually work, feed their family. People have to go to school, get educated and trained to work a specific job. There are concrete things people just got to have in this world. That's why training people on values cannot completely solve any problem. And we shouldn't look for it to solve any problem. Because concrete things like work and education has a direct effect on a person's situation, circumstance, or conditions, which then has an even more direct effect on a person's morals and values. And that effect on a person's values is even tenfold more stronger when he or she has no true power over the work or over the education. It is even more stronger when he or she has no control over the educational institution itself, when he or she has no control or say over an employer's rules or over a company's vision. You see, you can't put your input in, and you may know something that they don't. You're powerless. You feel me? As a matter of fact, when someone has the power to transform a people's concrete living conditions in the world, whether through employment or education, that same someone then has the power to transform those people's values within the world as well. Yeah, very true. Those people who have the power to transform a people's values through transforming or changing a people's living conditions, either through politics or business, is very adamant about having the things they do serve a direct social function for themselves. You see, they want to make sure they have the ultimate benefit from the transformation or change or whatever may be going on. You see, while regular everyday people may desire the transformation or change, the true benefit will inevitably be going towards the direction of those in power already. Yeah. One Kentucky political power player, Republican Senator Rand Paul, who is also the son of the Republican Party's most proposed defender of the Constitution and advocate of putting an end to the Federal Reserve, Ron Paul. Rand Paul's son, has been putting major focus on turning inner city public schools into independent, privately owned charter schools. As of right now, charter schools are considered as alternative education for most students and parents. What Rand Paul, the Republican senator from Kentucky, wants to do is turn charter schools into primary education, into a primary educational factor, should I say, with most of its focus on the oppressed. You see, he's going to put most of his focus on the oppressed in their inner city, the oppressed children in the schools. I recall going home one morning and hearing Rand Paul speaking about the benefits of charter schools for inner city Black and Latino kids on the Tom Joyner Morning Show radio station. Okay. And when asked if he was doing all this to win over black votes, he replied, "Yes, of course. I believe the Republican Party isn't doing enough to win over the black vote." Great answer, right? Great answer, right? While this may stand as truth, we must not forget that the true benefit of transformation and change will always go in the direction of those who hold the power. You see? The simple fact that there is focus and emphasis on oppressed, powerless inner city children in school systems raise the question to whom will ultimately benefit. Looking at the definition of charter school, could provide a better understanding of who will ultimately benefit from its insertion, if it's inserted. You see, charter school is primarily defined as a school which receives public funding but operates independently, meaning charter schools could be privately owned institutions that receives public funding, which means taxpayers, students' parents, and some students that work will find themselves paying taxes to keep privately owned institutions afloat. That's what this means. Because they will be more private than public. The local voting on issues concerning your child's schooling will be gone. Yeah. It don't seem like the community will be benefiting from Rand Paul's push of charter schools, you see, in the inner city communities and whatnot. Yet, we do see how the wealthy, conglomerate, corporate elitists could benefit the most, just by looking at the definition of a charter school. If we could picture how students can become commodities, any useful thing that can be bought and sold, you could buy it and sell it. That's what a commodity is. If we could picture a student or students becoming commodities, and understand that education is how we form young people, then we could see why someone like Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft, would support the privatization of education and the chartering of education, the use of charter schools, you see. Bill Gates has reportedly put over $87 million in positive publicity for reforming and changing public education. Yeah. There was a report about a charter school in Silicon Valley. This charter school was funded by Bill and Melinda Gates, Bill Gates' wife. Every staff member of the charter school had some relationship with Bill and Melinda Gates. PBS News aired a piece on that charter school explaining how good it could be to have more schools like that one across the nation, you see, across the country. Privately owned, privately supported by some conglomerate corporation within some lucrative field or industry, and privately funded, yet still can benefit from public funding and assistance as if it's a public school. This piece was also funded by Bill and Melinda Gates as well. That was aired on PBS. So everything was funded by Bill and Melinda Gates. They are working very heavily on putting certain policies in place for reforming and changing public education, because politicians can be bought. Politicians can be bought. That's why I say there's really no true power in voting. You have to have your own political party and put your money behind your own political candidates, because politicians can be bought. As we see, Bill Gates can put money into a school and have good publicity going towards what he's doing, because he's putting good money behind it. This is where Republican and Democrats will be working for the same ends, the same destination, while appearing to move in different directions, you see, because they can be bought on both sides by the same company, the same group, or same person. So Republican and Democrats will be working for the same ends, the same destination, while appearing to everyone else in the country to move in different directions when they're really not. They're working together. These policies that Bill and Melinda Gates are working so heavily on are very much in line with Obama's race to the top and George Bush's No Child Left Behind. We can remember that. Many people think that Obama's race to the top is different from George Bush's No Child Left Behind. But the reality is that Obama's race to the top is George Bush's No Child Left Behind rebranded. It's rebranded. The same thing, just calling it different. Same thing, just a different name. Both focus on breaking down teachers' unions, increasing the role of power of those who who are already in power, seeing students as investments in commodities, the useful thing that can be bought and sold. That's what a commodity is, a useful thing that can be bought and sold. And they want to see students as investments in commodities, and that's what they do. They see them as investments and as commodities. They want to increase the role of power of those who are already in power, the powerful having more power because they control the education, the educational system. You know, No Child Left Behind and Obama's Race to the Top. They both focus on standardizing the tests. To standardize tests is to standardize students and future workers. They both focus on turning public education into a private marketplace, pretty much. That's the whole gist of it. In the State of the Union speech of 2012, Obama said, and I quote, "Over the next 10 years, nearly half of all new jobs are going to require a level of education that goes beyond a high school diploma," unquote. To combat this, most Democrats and some Republicans are seriously pushing to add a 13th and 14th grade in high school, making it optional. You hear me? Making it optional if students want to continue to get their associate's degree. Of course, by doing this, taxes may go up to help fund this free optional associate's degree program within the high schools. Because remember, charter schools are schools which receives public funding but operates independently. Rand Paul, Kentucky Republican senator, spoke about a school voucher, which is a certificate of funding issued by the government that could fully or partially pay for the tuition for a year, term, or semester. But one must wonder at least, where all this money will come from if the plan is to send all students to private charter schools. You see, of course, Rand Paul, being a senator, is trying to. He may also run for president somewhere later down the line. And if this is something that he still is big on, where will all this money come from? We have to wonder. Just because you say such pleasing words or hear such pleasing words like school voucher does not mean that there will not be any taxes to be paid. We have to understand this. He's a politician. He would say all types of pleasing things that seems very pleasing to the ear. Stuff that's easy to swallow. You see. But it's not. That's not the case. In many cases, it's not greener on the other side. It's really not. Actually, it's probably worse. Probably want to just stay where you are sometimes. But that's the case with politicians. They try to make you feel or make you see that it's greener on the other side, and in reality, it's a lot worse. And it only gets worse, especially if you know the end result of what they're really trying to get to. As the associate's degree replaces the high school diploma, it becomes more evident that students become more valuable than slaves in the early 19th century. By standardizing tests, they can standardize the future. By treating education like a commodity, we ultimately commodify our children. Yeah, this is very true. Privatizing public schools and adding a 13th and 14th grade in high school ultimately benefit and serves the same social function of the rich and powerful within society. Yeah, very true. Very much true. This power politics on education, of getting it to secretly benefit a certain group, is not new. By far, it's not new. During the time of Reconstruction in America, the late 1800s, the idea of public education was considered luxury within many southern states, meaning it was for the more wealthy and well-to-do within society. You see, the blacks, because we're talking about the late 1800s and the Reconstruction age of America, the blacks who were legally emancipated and free from slavery lived among themselves within their own communities, of course, because now they're legally free. So they lived among themselves because there's still segregation. In Mississippi, a state known for its segregated pride even back then, had its politics dominated by whites. And when it came to the public educational institutions within the state, Mississippi dropped the state tax that funded all public education within the state and placed the responsibility of funding public education totally on the communities. And what they used to do this to help validate it was the idea of public education being luxury in some of these states in the South. You see, so Mississippi dropped the state tax that funded all public education within the state and placed the responsibility of funding public education totally on the communities. And blacks live amongst themselves in their own communities, knowing that the black community was, and if I may add, still is, economically lacking and politically weak when it comes to inserting their wishes, desire, and will upon the state. You know, we still powerless, you know, along with a lot of other handful of whites, a handful of everyone, you know. So it's not just a black thing, but we're talking about the 1800s here. For the whites in Mississippi during this time, in the Reconstruction age of the late 1800s, they single-handedly changed blacks' educational conditions, therefore changing the blacks' economic and personal values by weakening the public education institutions within the black communities through their white dominance, their white power, and their white control within the politics of the state. You see, a people must have ultimate control over their destiny, their wishes, and their goals and their desire. Ultimately, what they want to push out, they should have the ultimate control of their destiny and of their desire. Many people don't understand the strong connotation that the simple yearning of a word like desire has. The strong idea of feeling that it invokes, in addition to its literal and primary meaning. The word desire is very closely related to words like passion, love, drive, and willpower. To have the will, the power to drive, the passion, love. This is desire, ladies and gentlemen. For many years now, the very wealthy and powerful of Cleveland, Ohio, has had a very strong desire to remove what they consider the riffraff to neighboring suburbs of Cleveland, Ohio. Yeah.
And get all this talk.
This is true as well.
About LeBron James. Many people talk about LeBron James.
The common and popular belief that LeBron James' return to Cleveland, Ohio, is going to be beneficial for everyone in Cleveland, including the average, common, everyday, exploited, working class individual, is very misleading, especially when one consciously see the moves being played against the average exploiting working class individual. The desire of having a new casino, just a few blocks away from an arena or field with a winning team. The desire to make and create Cleveland, Ohio into a happening city will eventually have more of a toll than a benefit for the powerless average folk. Powerless average folk meaning people who work and may get paid well, very well, but have no political, economic party of their own. Remember, we do live in a capitalistic society. You know, we do have to keep that in mind. LeBron James' return to Cleveland, Ohio will ultimately benefit the same people who are ultimately benefiting the most from the Horseshoe Casino in downtown Cleveland. Yeah, very much. They may have added a LeBron James roller coaster ride at Cedar Point, but the same game of inserting their will, wishes, and desire upon the state is still at hand. While the powerless, average, working class folk is economically lacking and politically weak when it comes to inserting their wishes, desire, and will upon the state. Moving what the wealthy and powerful consider riffraff from the inner city of Cleveland to the suburbs, you see, nearby suburbs of Cleveland, where the happening is in Cleveland right there, or at least where they're trying to make the happening be at is in Cleveland, consists of many economic and political moves, you see. So in order to move what the wealthy and powerful consider the riffraff from the inner city of Cleveland, where the happening is or where the happening will be, consists of many economic and political moves. This is very true. This is very true. The idea of privatizing public schools and or chartering public schools is becoming a real reality within the inner city of Cleveland as we speak. Parents are finding themselves having to pay for what used to be free of public education. And we must not forget that just because such pleasing words like school voucher may be brought up does not mean that there will not be any taxes to be paid. Still might have to pay for it. Parents who cannot afford to change find themselves voluntarily moving out to the suburbs where public education may still be free. Yeah. These parents that feel like it's their choice that they're moving when it's really not their choice. It's something that's forced on them to move into the suburbs where public education may still be free. Those parents and others who may have lived in the inner city because of the convenience of the bus line may start to see the hours of busing change on some routes. For example, a nearby neighboring eastern county has limited hours, has put a limit on hours on some routes where those in power of that county would consider their county's riffraff routes, you see. But extending hours on some routes where those who may go into Cleveland to work just to pay damn near an arm and a leg just to survive and feel somewhat privileged in the county's better parts, you see. Bus lines may even help bus students to suburbs where the education is free, while school buses may be used for charter schooling only. The changing of hours when it comes to busing will inevitably have an effect on people looking, getting, and keeping jobs, for sure. The scarcity of jobs and too many seeking employment. How many good paying factory jobs can there be in the state? How many casino management and nursing positions can there be? And if your car is not all that reliable and the busing hours are difficult, then how? One works hard to become desirable, only to become undesirable. Too many desirables in a desired state equals too many undesirables. There are many nursing programs in the Cleveland area, and there are many nursing positions within the Cleveland area. I mean, you got Cleveland Clinic, you got University Hospitals, and many others. You got Lake County and things in that nature that may be having some areas in Cleveland, you know, and there's other counties that have positions for nursing, and their bus scheduling and all that stuff. If your car may have a problem, which is mostly the case for a lot of people, you know, you may still be paying a car note and your car breaks down on you. This stuff just happens, you know, and that's why if you got a job, you should just have a reliable car. I mean, the government should just make sure cars are very reliable for people who work, you know. But hey, that's not the case, you know. So they control you through the bus routes as well. And control your situation, your circumstance, and your conditions through the bus routes as well. All right. But yeah, there are many nursing programs in the Cleveland area that teach you how to be a nurse. And there are many nursing positions within the Cleveland area as well, if you just look in the newspaper. But one's schooling, diploma, or degree can give them a false sense of desirability if they believe obtaining some such achievement will keep them desirable within a desired state. You see, too many desirables in a desired state equals too many undesirables. We're going to understand this. We're going to have to. Too many desirables in a field where there is no longer as many desirables being desired equals undesirability. We have to understand this. You see, our desire to appear desirable exceeds desire itself. Our desire to appear desirable exceeds desire itself. Even when we don't want it to, or have no intentions not to, this becomes even more true. Now this becomes even more true when someone else have the control or power over your situation. For they can make you appear and seem desirable without you ever fully grasping the desire itself. You see, just because a person has a specific degree for a specific field does not mean, especially in today's age and time, he or she will get that job in that specific field. Their desirable pay rate may not even be met. You see, and I know that many men have heard this before. I know that just because a woman comes off desirable and appears sexy does not mean she is looking for and wanting sex. Yeah. Even women's sexual self-esteem often reflects how they judge their appearance against the current ideal. Those who, the current ideal that is controlled by the powerful and the wealthy, you see. Yeah. As a result, for most, feeling sexy in our Western culture leave many too tired or perceivably lacking to want sex. Here in Naomi Wolf's 1991 book, The Beauty Myth, she argued that women's look, or more importantly, how they think they look, is still at the heart of much of their anxiety. This obviously has an effect on a woman's libido, their sexual desire and their sexual vitality. However, women, no matter the effect, want to appear desirable, sexy to the opposite sex in some way or fashion. And this is very true as well. In the past, women altered their bodies to mark themselves as members of their tribe or culture. Beautifying acts were meaningful and meaningfully ritualized. There was a ritual to it. So they were meaningfully ritualized. Their alliance now appears to be the images they are fed by the media and the public validation they receive if they can match them, whether through exercise, makeup, dress, diet, or cosmetic procedures. Yeah. The more widely images of the female body are distributed, the more deeply contemporary norms are imprinted on women's consciousness, leading them to anxiety and bodily dissatisfaction if they don't match up. You see, even the desire to appear sexy exceeds sex itself for many women. So it brings me to this. In order to have control over our desire, we must have complete control over our destiny. As years and technology advances, it becomes more subliminal, and for some even more evident, that we as a people are allowing our desire, our destiny to be manipulated, deceived, governed, regulated, validated, and controlled by some social power other than our own, serving their direct social function every step of the way. Serving their direct social function every step of the way. Controlling the very platform of our conditions, situations, and circumstances, therefore having a direct effect on our values and morals. Meechadini.com for betterconditions.org. Support the cause. Support the cause.